Hello there, a jolly good morning to you. Thank you plainly for keeping it with Niger Live Television. This is the paper review segment of our daily programming here at Niger Live Television. My name is Henry Ahamuefula. We start off with the Vanguard paper this morning, which is reporting around the 2027 election and the ADC holding its convention. The way they put it, they say ADC dares court. INEC holds convention. That's the convention they held yesterday. And of this particular story, the writers, there is Mark that's saying democracy is at risk. And also he says ADC won't bow to political pressure. Ahamuefula also is on that rider. He says convention is valid and INEC has failed in its duty. An article is saying that INEC is being used to undermine democracy. Amechi Galadima blasts federal government over pressure on opposition. And there is also Tambua that's warning judiciary, says let no judge be used to destroy Nigeria. Supreme Court also has shifted the leadership suit hearing to April 22nd, and court has also ordered ADC to hold national convention and maintain status quo. There is also a writer there around Gombe, who's the factional chairman of the ADC. He's praying a lower court to adjourn a case with Mark indefinitely. One would ask, why exactly is he making such prayer? Does it not serve the interest of both parties equally for the hearing to be expedited, to be had? There is also a writer to that story that talks around the ADC and their convention. They say the convention ratifies NEC decisions and also dissolves NWC, expels Gombe and Abejide. These are writers of that big story there on the Vanguard paper. There's another story that's very beneath it, that's on page 9 of the Vanguard paper, by the way. It's around the PDP crisis, and it says Supreme Court okays speedy hearing of appeal by Turaki-led faction. Another story that is of interest that's contained on the Vanguard paper this morning is around the commissioning of the NRS headquarters that was done yesterday by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There's a photo there on the Vanguard paper that has, of course, the President. It also has the Senate President. It has the Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma. Also, the Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, is also contained there on that particular photo that's on the Vanguard paper. Let's check quickly the Punch paper this morning. And on the Punch paper, they're still reporting off the ADC convention. It says Mark Atiku Ahamuefula tackled Tinubu on hardship and insecurity. This is also as Obi Amechi decry rising poverty, and ADC chiefs predict tough 2027 for Tinubu. Many analysts will disagree with that, though. But wait, that's what the ADC are saying. The Supreme Court to hear ADC leaders appeal against INEC. That's on April 22. And the ADC factional leader mocks Mark, others over convention. The story of the ADC. Away from that, to story on page 35 of the Punch paper. Nigeria's debt hits 159.28 trillion naira on fresh loans. Would you look at that? And away from that, fact deductions go up 41% of 84 trillion naira revenue is contained on page 35 also of the Punch paper. A story around JAM says security beefed up at JAM exam centers. That's police says that on page 31. That's in view of the JAM exams that will hold from Thursday to Saturday this week. Also, a story on the Punch paper is around suspected coaches beating Lagos Monarch's son to death. It's contained on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch paper. Olubadan, Ajimobi's widow, deny plot to impeach Makinde is also a story that's contained on page 7, page 34, I beg your pardon, of the Punch paper this morning. I'll leave the Punch quickly and I'll check out the Guardian paper, right? The Guardian paper also reports around the ADC being on the brink of 2027 exclusion as court battles and deadline draw near. That's the big story of the Guardian paper. Borno, Benue top NBS records of 3.38 million IDPs across 14 states. 3.38 million IDPs across 14 states, and Borno, Benue are topping the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics records on that particular one. So they have the most IDPs in 14 states, across 14 states. JAM, police dismiss safety concerns as 2.2 million candidates set for UTME. There were talks that students will not be safe, amid the whole kidnapping and insecurity that's going on around the country. Well, there is JAM and also police are dismissing these safety concerns, saying they are adequately prepared and that students will not be kidnapped or no harm will come to students. Another way to put it. El-Rufai gets 200 million naira bail as court imposes gag order in alleged graft trial. That's a story around on page 30. One would wonder 200 million naira. Why do courts set these huge amount, for bail? One would wonder why that is. What is the take-home monthly, yearly of these governors? Is an ex-governor? Is this some sort of assumption that he had some way of taking money while he was in office? Because as a governor, would he be able to pay 200 million naira? Would that not break him if he truly relied on the salary he had while he was in office? 200 million naira, that's a lot of money. Many would say to be also a bail condition. Well, on page 5 of the Garden paper, Oyo lawmakers at Jimobi deny impeachment plot against Makinde. That's a story we've already taken to of the other papers. And on 2027, option narrows for electorate as PDP, Labour Party, NNPP, their crisis, they linger. And the Garden says option narrows for electorate. It seems as though it is straight up the APC. If the other political parties are having challenges and crises and maybe they're not in the ballot, maybe you just have to vote the APC or any of the other mushroom political parties that are out there. Rising LPG prices, Middle East crisis, 13 Nigeria's cooking gas market is a story on page 15. IMF downgrades Nigeria's GDP outlook, warns of rising risks. That's also a story that's on page 50 of the Guardian paper this morning. And I'll leave that particular paper to check out another paper this morning. Particularly, I like to check out the Daily Monitor paper, right? Daily Monitor reports around the IMF. That's the lead story, the big story. IMF downgrades Nigeria's 2026 growth outlook to 4.1%. They say oil price gains are not enough to shield Nigeria's economy, and also the lower global growth forecast amid Middle East war is still taking a toll, and Nigeria taking a toll on the world. You may be making money, following these particular crises that's rocking the Middle East, but then the inflation is eating it up. And this is exactly how IMF has downgraded Nigeria's 2026 growth outlook to 4.1%. We have to be careful. We have to do certain things to shore up, outlook. ADC would not bow to political pressure, says Mark. Okay, and now away from that, allow me to check out the Daily Sun paper real quick. The Daily Sun paper. On the Daily Sun paper, insecurity, Akpabio fingers opposition, expresses optimism the situation will end after the 2027 polls. And on 2027, Nigeria will not coronate Kabiyesi in Asuruk, says ADC. They've been saying that the president, it seems as though he does not want an election, but rather he wants a coronation, and that's why many say, well, the ADC says he's been stifling opposition. On page 29, there's a story around the Unijust student abduction and Igbo youths demanding federal government intervention. The US-Iran war also makes it to the Daily Sun paper, as they say, triggers jet fuel crisis and pushes local airfares to 135,000 naira from 92,000 naira. Would you look at that? But details are contained on page 25. INEC chairman won't get away with illegality, says Nigeria. And this is as will be cries that Nigeria is collapsing. The Story of the president commissioning the NRS headquarters still is contained on the Daily Sun paper this morning. Right, but very close to the nameplate of the Daily Sun paper is a story around the NCAA certificates, and NCAA certifying Ahamuefula International Airport in Nugu, and so it means that, of course, flight will be allowed to take off, and the airport will be fully operational. The ADC really is on all of the papers this morning, even on the Daily Independent, the lead with the ADC. But I'll leave that story to touch on a story around Tinubu taunting opposition, saying ADC, PDP, others are confused. And this is also as he declares new tax laws will deliver prosperity to Nigerians. And Ababio says insecurity is increasing because election is coming. That's one big story that's coming out of the commissioning yesterday, when he said that insecurity is increasing because of the elections that are coming. One would wonder what kind of statement is that. Is he saying that, well, that's what politicians do, they take turns to kill Nigerians when it's an electoral cycle or when it's time for election? Because that's what he said there. It's because of well, the elections that are coming in 2027. That's why we're having a lot of insecurity. And which are we even to believe? Because then again, there are dismissals that, well, some will say it's those who are looking to, foreign interests who are looking to pluck certain things off Nigeria that are, you know, causing this insecurity. But I'll leave that story and check out the story around Olubada and the Nine involvement. We've already taken that. And story around IMF lifting Nigeria's outlook. Forecasts 4.3 growth in 2027 is also there on the paper this morning. And I'll quickly leave that to touch on the leadership paper. With the leadership paper, there's a story around the RFI getting bail, which we've already taken, and the Supreme Court being built to hear PDP and ADC appeals on April 22. That follows, of course, the hearing they had yesterday. They had to fix April 22 to hear it properly. And amid litigation, internal dispute, Mark-led ADC holds convention. That's the way the leadership puts theirs. The other stories are pretty much what we've seen on other papers. So I'll quickly check out the Daily Monitor, which also has similar stories. And the These Day paper, Tinubu, no serious nation can prosper with weak, fragmented revenue system. This clearly is off the commissioning of the NRS headquarters. But he says the old tax laws made Nigerians poor and also assures the new system will create opportunities and prosperity. He also marks opposition parties, saying he may commission Akpabio to destabilize them, as Senate President blames opposition for worsening insecurity. And Zak Adedeji says President's economic policies saved Nigeria from the brink. And also it declares net reserves would have been $2 billion, inflation 120%, exchange rate 3,000 naira to a dollar at parallel segment, debt service over 100% of revenues with reforms. Away from the Disney paper, right, let's check out one other paper this morning before we could effectively call it a wrap on the papers review this morning. And let's check out the Tribune paper. The latest story, ADC won't surrender to tyranny, says David Mark. And Tinubu also says no country can develop with inefficient tax system. Pretty much same story. Federal government Defense Air Force insists Borno airstrike was precision operation. This is also coming from the Minister of Defense, Christopher Musa, on page 21. He says Federal government Defense Air Force insists Borno airstrike was precision operation. This is also where they say that those who are friends of terrorists will be dealt the same hand as terrorists. And the Jili Market bombing, the Jili Market airstrike done by the federal government, they say no civilian was caught in the crossfire, no civilian was caught in the bomb attacks. But well, those who are using, those who were at the market at the particular time, are those who enable terrorist activities, and so, well, they did not classify them as civilians, haven't given that warning that those who associate with terrorists are also to be dealt with the same hand as terrorists. Of 2027, Ogun Muslims demand governorship slot. That's a page 18 story, right? Content on page 18 of the paper this morning, right? Okay, I'll check out the business day, and that's where our curtain will fall on the papers today. I'll check out the business day paper this morning. And the business day is reporting something rather interesting. That's around the airfares holding steady as new airlines offset jet fuel price surge. The David Mark story also makes it to the business day. Also, there's a story around analysts seeing inflation rising as Iran war ripples through fuel and food, right? Alrighty, Nigeria adopts AI-driven service overhaul to cut delays on oil investment, is a story that's contained on page 30 of the paper. Well, that's the much we can take, and so the curtain falls here on the papers this morning. My name is Henry Ahamuefula. Have a beautiful one.